Yeah,
It's
it's
fine. I'm
almost getting
audible right now?
Yeah, you're
Yes,
audible. Yeah.
I'm audible now.
Yeah.
yes.
We can hear you.
So
Okay.
I think we will start. Good evening to all the members and participants of the 14th Tibeto-Burman
Sorry.
weekly talk series. Today, our speaker is Dr. Wanglit Mongchan. He is an assistant professor of linguistics in the Arunachal Institute of Tribal Studies, Rajiv Gandhi University, India. He holds his MA in English Literature from RGU, Arunachal Pradesh, and MA in Linguistics from Deccan College Postgraduate Research Institute, Pune. He received his PhD in linguistics from University of Mysore, Karnataka. His research interests include tribal language and literature, sociolinguistics, ethnolinguistics, language education, endangered language, documentation, and cultural studies. He has translated Bible, the New Testament, from English to Nokte and published several articles in journals and edited books. Today, our speaker will be that is Dr. Wanglit Mongchan will be talking about language as cultural resources. So now I'd like to request our honorable speaker to kindly deliver his talk.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I thank the core committee member of this Tiblani, and of course, one of the most active members, Monali and our Biren. Thank you for inviting me to have a talk on this particular topic. This is the first attempt that I just wanted to understand how language act as a cultural resources. So during the course of my talk, I would be talking about few important aspects of this cultural resources and how language encodes this cultural informations. So if we can you go down next slide? Okay, so this will be the basic objectives of what I'm going to discuss. Here I would like to say the first two objectives. First two objectives, of course, is a very general. Many of us we know that, but where I'm not going to discuss much more on that. But the third would be the most important part of this talk. So first of all, to start a brief introductions of what I personally understand what is language and all. I just wanted to share. So personally, I feel language as I understand is a human. It's quite a living kind of thing. And also why it is human, because human only has that a faculty of language, or we are actually adorned with language. We know that no other human beings are capable of using the language that we human use. Therefore, language is one of the important assets to a human society. It's very important for all of us as a society. We understand that a society without language would be like more or less like a house without roof. Roof of the house shelter us. So like language shelters us. It's important asset for all of us. And also it is a storehouse of knowledge and wisdom. And such as the divine wisdom, the wisdom that we express through language. And language is the embodiment of the metaphysical or biological or philosophy, art, literature, and mathematics. So it comprises of whole knowledge, and it's the whole knowledge has been transferred through language. So how important it is for us. Now, apart from that, it's through language only that the whole social cultural development takes place, whether we call it affirmations of identity or expressions of social cultural knowledge and values, or it's language that enrich the culture. So it's important. Now, You can just imagine like a language without, a world without a language. So if the language was not there, then our whole, universe or our world, would have been soundless, wordless, and meaningless. And therefore, we would not be able to understand or appreciate or experience the entire whole fullness of life, the richness of life. And it's because of the language we can feel it, we can see it, we can understand, we know everything about what the whole world is. All right, so it's important. So I just written down few why language is important. uh, I say that like language is it is very powerful. It is so powerful. Here's a 5 6 lines which I have not given in the slides, but few like I have written. So please listen to that. Why it is so powerful? It is so powerful that it can melt the most stubborn and reluctant maiden's heart. It can drive away even the closest friend of your life. It can bend the mightiest king or ruler to his knee. It can bring solace to the heart of the dejected souls. It can bind the two distinct creatures for the rest of their life. And finally, it's very important, it can crush the entire human race into dust if we misuse the language. If we don't know how to use the language, and if we don't pay attention to the language. So uh, many people say that, when this language die, then we also believe as a linguist that when a language dies, the whole knowledge systems of that particular community also dies along. But here I would like to add more or put it in a much more stronger version, is that when a man dies, he dies alone. But when language dies, all die alone. So when we die alone. But when language dies, all die along. Everything goes with language. So how important it is that we have to understand. Now, coming to the main point of today discussions. So we know that language and culture interrelationships, which we have studied in our master degree as students of linguistics. Now, this interrelationship between has been discussed by many, earlier scholars. But here, just I've taken out some quote given by some people, like how language and culture are related. So if you just look at the quote where the Rita Mae Brown has, quoted, what she says is that language is the road map of a culture. It tells you where its people come from and where they are going. And second one, if you look at, then if a culture was a house, just imagine if the culture was a house, the language was the key to the front door and all rooms inside. So how important is it? The language is the heart of any cultural, compositions or any cultural, any society. So that is what the importance of culture and then how they are related. Now, coming to the next slide, then you see that linguistic relativity, or famously called as Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, is one of the pioneer in the sense to understand the interrelationship between language and culture. And before that, of course, there were people who also has discussed, like Harder, Wilhelm, and Humboldt, and they have talked about, but then this was one of the, maybe the turning point in the history of linguistics, where that culture and language relationship was, in a way, it was given more importance to understand. So we understand that from that Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, we know like different. First of all, what the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis says is that there's a diversity of languages exist in this world, and then one language differ from another languages in terms of the word meaning, or maybe the structure, the syntactic constructions. So they differ from one, and accordingly, the different people who speak different languages think differently. That is what the whole idea of this Sapir-Whorf hypothesis. Now, second one is the structure and lexicon. One language influences how one perceives and visualizes the world. So this is the language. If the language has different categories from the other languages, then that language will have a different understanding or of the world around. Or people who speak different language will have different perceptions about the worldview. So we know that from this example, like uh, say here a few examples I've given, like in terms of like objects, spatial, time, color, cognitions, and all. They have many early scholars have done a kind of experiment to and see that how people perceive the certain objects, or maybe in terms of time, how they, time or spatial understanding, and also in terms of color terms and all. So we know, like for example, Hopi in where they about the time, for example, tense. So they have different kind of understanding of the time period than the other language speakers, such as the English. Then we also have the Eskimo, for example. They have so many different terms for say snow, and they have more than 30 terms for that particular snow thing. And English and many other like languages, like some of our TB languages, we don't have much term for that particular, because and therefore our understanding of that particular snow or the concept would be a little bit limited in a sense. But for Eskimo, it will be quite elaborate, quite comprehensive. They will be able to perceive that or understand that snow in a very much more in a larger manner. And then we have Hununu is one of the language again, and has 92 names for rice. Just imagine. So they will have a much more better understanding of the compositions of that so-called rice. Similarly, if you look at some of our tribal languages, we also have different verbs for eating different things. Maybe for example, even for example, in Nocte, we have a verb which is, for example, English. Take eat. It is an English verb which is used to eat anything, like maybe food or biscuit or anything for that matter. But then in some of our tribal languages, say in my languages, Nocte, we have different terms for eating. Say maybe eating fish will be different from eating rice, and then biscuit, and so forth. So our, because there's some cultural that something is embedded in that particular term or verb that we use. It's not merely eating, but also eating something which is very hard in nature will have a different term. Eating something which has a liquid kind, it will have a different. And then also eating which is very soft kind of things will have a different term for that. And similarly, sorry, classifiers, numeric classifiers or noun classifiers in some of the language, they have different categorizing the objects when you count, because their shape and size are involved. But in other languages, it may not be. English is simple, like 1, 2, 3, they count one ball, 2, one stick, like that. But in other languages, excuse me, it's different. There will be a kind of even the size and shape also will be embedded in that one particular lexical item. So without looking at the shape and size of that particular object, you can't count it in some of our languages, which have like classifiers, very elaborate classifiers. So that is what the whole idea about the linguistic relativity, how people, how the language shapes the way they think, okay, the way they perceive the world around them. So ultimately, the whole idea of linguistic relativity is the individuals with different languages think differently. That is the thing. Now, next point would be, next slide. Okay, fine, thank you. Yeah, so, no, yeah, that's correct. Now, from social cultural context, from social, linguistics context also, they have tried to look at. Now, we have Delheims, they are the pioneer where in terms of understanding the language in social context. So they have discussed about this. Language is seen as a context-embedded social actions. So language and context are two very important, like, because you can't just separate language from the the social actions, and it's the context and language you understand in terms of context. Now, and social function is a source from which the linguistics features are formed or generated. So it's a social functions, it's a social actions in a community, in a society where people interact, where there's a discourse going on. From that, you understand this. Then from there, you develop or you form a linguistic features. Actually, that's what and that is what ethnography of speaking also talks about. And of course, the language and culture are inextricably linked. I mean, they can't be separated. They're like one coin. You can't take out one from the other and say that independently they function. They are not independent. They are connected. They have interrelationship between language and culture. They're like a coin, head and tail both. Then only they get the value. Then you understand the whole, the culture and relationship. Of course, that as per the social linguist, they say like language should also be structurally sound, referentially accurate, and also the contextually appropriate. So referentially accurate, contextually appropriate, and also structurally sounds are the what the social linguistics talks about. And of course, the last is language and discourse shape our understanding of it. Is both the language itself will not give you a whole idea about it, but then when you use it in a context, when you apply that linguistic categories in a social context, then only you will be able to understand the whole perceptions about you, then about the the world, or you will be able to perceive what is your environment, or right? So that is what the socially constituted linguistic or social linguistic relativity is all about. Now this is what the next slide. Can you give me? Okay, so this is a language as a social culture. Now we understand that cultural resources, when we say cultural resources, can have both natural and man-made physical features or physical objects. Okay, and this include like such as artifacts, archaeological sites, structures, landscape, objects of import, cultural items, values, rights, norms, or actions. Okay, all these are the different cultural resources, and these different cultural resources actually have a term. They have a particular term, and that term, give has a very quite significance to understand what the social cultural compositions is all about. So therefore, since they have so many, physical, both natural and physical features in a social cultural setup, therefore language and therefore language represents that whole social cultural compositions. Okay, it's so therefore it's or the to say that the language represents a rich fabric of social cultural expressions. It is a language through which you express your you express your whole knowledge, social cultural knowledge, indigenous knowledge systems. Is a true language. Now UNESCO also taken consider the importance of language. So therefore, it says that it carries individual or community identity and mediates value system, social codes, worldviews, and the sense of belonging. Here also, worldviews is another important, which is a part of Wall and Sapir hypothesis, so social codes, worldviews, and sense of belonging. This is what the UNESCO also says about language. And another another point you can see that language also serves as a repository of knowledge, values, beliefs, and collective memory, which is transmitted through songs, dance. So language is important. And as I said in the beginning, that it is a storehouse of knowledge and all the value systems, our religious belief system, and whatever we have a collective memory in. And it is through language only we are able to transmit it. And maybe it could be through the songs or dance performance or drama for anything that. So that is what UNESCO also observed that. Now, one of the, like Harman also now give the importance of the language. Okay, and where he says that every every major aspects of human culture, for example, kinship. Okay, classification is one of the important to understand the relationship in a society. Okay, and kinship and religion, they are dependent on language for its transmissions. And without language, you can't further transmit all these terms, all this the social cultural codes. Now, last point is like language connects people with their past and grounds their social, emotional, and spiritual vitality. Now, here there's one quote by S.T. Coleridge. S.T. Coleridge, he says that language is the armory of human mind and at once contains the trophies of its past and weapons of its future conquest. So language will connect us with the past. We will be able to trace our past history. We will be able to know, and also give us the strength, to ground it in our own, maybe in terms of our social interactions, or in terms of emotionally, and also spiritually. It will vitalize us. Language would be able to vitalize. Language has a capability to, help us to be more strong emotionally or spiritually. So that is what. Now, our next slide is important. Now, why I just wanted to discuss all these different very common terms that you see, like, because we all of us, many of us would be doing this kind of linguistics. We have been doing it and we have been collecting it. These basic terminologies which we have been collecting in our research. And so these are the components of language and cultural resources, actually. Now, one of the important personal name, of course, in basic vocabulary, we don't usually collect those basic personal names and claim names and all, clan names and all. No, but there's a very important component. This is a very component of language. Now, names, for example. Name has a particular term, okay, but many people think that name doesn't, excuse me, so sorry. Many people think that name is not that important as such. But what I personally feel is that traditional names, especially the traditional names, are very important because it's not only, because it gives you identity. And then also it has a lot more things to say. For example, the history, even the gender, marital status, birthplace, family, nationality, ethnicity, religion, and position within a family or even within a society are somewhere, there in the personal names. For example, in Nocte, we have a name which is more or less, gender. There's a gender distinction, male and female. They have different names. Cha, for example, CHA. Cha is usually for female, and Wang is usually for male. So in any name starting with Wang or ending with Wang would most probably will be an name of a particular man. All right, and then Cha, if it starts with Cha, then it is more name for the girl child, and it has also a status and family, family, clan. Those things are always somewhere embedded in that particular term. For example, sorry. Okay, so naming is also very important. So we look beyond the term it has. For example, I suppose if I just translate it in terms of literal translations of that just name, that is not enough. But rather, we should also look at beyond what, that name, the deep meaning, the social cultural informations that is there in that particular person name, and also that there are belief system associated with names. So name is just merely sake for the identity. Because, for example, in my culture, what happens? Suppose if name is very important because it also has a physiological and psychological influences. If your name is not appropriate, then what happens that we believe that there is something wrong, that person will not be able to grow properly, or there will be some kind of physiological problem can happen to. So therefore, we change name. We for example, my aunt brother, his name was different, but later on we changed. Why? Because we thought that he was not growing properly. He used to be sick for all the time. So therefore, we thought that name is not suited for that. So this name is not suited. So therefore, we change it. Then later on, I don't know what is actually what is happening. But then, of course, later on, this whole whatever he used to happen with him, all those gone, and then he was able to grow properly. So those things are very important. So name is not merely a term, but it has so many important informations to give. Now, body parts, for example, the color terms is also important. It's just not merely collecting the equivalent terms for the different parts of body parts, but we should also look at how they are being organized, how they try, people of that community, they perceive the particular parts of the body. For example, English, hand is the entire whole, that hand. I mean, but then the moment they try to say like palm, finger, thumb, right, wrist, elbow, and all those things, and shoulder, all those are different parts of that hand. All right, but they have a different specific term for that. But then our understanding of this hand, it's this finger, palm, thumb, whatever, nail, for example, wrist, elbow, these are the, it can't be separated. So therefore, our term for different parts of this hand would be like, for example, finger would be daksu. Duck is a hand, all right? This is a hand, complete that hand. Now, this term for finger is daksu, and palm is dakpa, nail is dakkin, wrist is daksi, and this elbow is dakku. So you see the duck. There is a duck, which means that we look at this all this so-called other different parts of hand as inseparable part of this entire whole hand. They're not. But English has maybe different term for that. Maybe they're separate actually. But our understanding is different. So those has to be taken care. We should look beyond that, not mere translations of the hand equivalent hand. So we will not be able to understand the hand, the concept of hand completely. All right, and then counting systems, calendars, and then mathematics directions, all those. We see there are different terms we use for different this for counting systems, the different way of understanding the counting system, and also time. Then spatial, we have different spatial locations, orientations that where day, for example, day, English has a today, tomorrow, day after tomorrow, like that. Now, and yesterday, day before yesterday, like that. So now today is the, you know, the point from where it starts in octave. For example, today is Thaja, then tomorrow will be Ninap, changes. Ninap, Sanap, Ramnap, Kunap, Chinap. So at least we can count to 6 days. Ninap, Sanap, Ramnap, Kunap, Chinap. All right, this is the way we count for tomorrow, day after tomorrow, and then like that. All right. Now, anything, you know, after that today is counted as Thaja, Maja, Jangja. So look at here. So this is the cutting point. So present is the main from where past and then future has been, you know, understood. So we have different terms, and the seasons, and then also the seasons. For example, season is based on you know, the cyclic of the moon. All right. So all those things are different kind of understanding the whole, you know, geographical locations, even for spatial, like orientations, like up, down, all right, and then away from speakers, towards the speakers. All this there are embedded in the word itself. Motions verbs in octave, for example, has like we have separate cat and wang. Cat means going down, wang means going up. Cat means down, wang means up. These are the two, you know, verbs where separately we use, all right, for going down and going up. And towards the speakers, away the speakers also are, you know, there are some morphological elements there where which are attached to that particular verb, and then it will show like whether it's away from the speakers or towards the speakers. So it is there itself. So we understand go and come in terms of locations. Okay, up and down. Kingships, for example, has a form of address terms, we know, and we have different terms for different, you know, different relations. For example, Galo has, for example, Abo. Abo is usually they address to maybe father, but it can be addressed to, you know, anybody who are from the father side. For example, even your paternal auntie, Buaji, you can address her as a Abo. So their understanding is different. So, and their entire whole is drawn, you know, drawn from that, you know, paternal side. So even name, for example, I forgot to tell you, naming of in Galo society, one of the tribes in Arunachal Pradesh, they take the, you know, last syllable of their father's name. So you will find this father's name, you know, always there in whether boys' names or girls' name. So they are very patrilineal, you know, the methodology they used for the naming process, naming system. All right. Similarly, so in that way, even in the kinship terms, it's reflected. Even in the kinship terms, they're reflected, because therefore there's even abo. If you can call to the abua, your auntie, paternal auntie, as a abo, that means it's so patrilineal. All right. And in Nocte, we have different terms for that, but ours is different. Because ours is like that. Our paternal will have a different term, and then, you know, maternal will have a different term. Maternal are all mothers, actually. So we will have a kind of that mother term is used for all the maternal, you know, aunts. All right. So see different. So there are different. Lot of informations are being, you can find in even in particular the term. Right. So next is now food and drinks. Now concept for food. Food, for many of us, for many, our tribal culture, food is, which means it could be, rice or any, not, actually it should have a rice. Rice, when you eat rice, only you know, then you can say that you have eaten food. But for other culture, maybe different. For Western culture, food is not only a rice; it could be different. So our understanding of food is very different. It's different from the other culture, other language speakers. So all this, the concept that lies beneath that particular term, need to be taken care of. All right. So therefore, I just put it, and not sorry. Sorry, I have a little. I was not, that do that well to them. So therefore, excuse me for that. Now, there are many other, social, cultural, so-called practices also involved in that. That, for example, taboos is one of the most important, which is associated with eating of food. And in that case, ginger, for example, ginger is one food items for many of our culture. And ginger, for example, is used for different things. It also has a ritual purpose. All right. For example, in my community, ginger is not only for consumptions, but also we have a very important. It also shows some kind of a relationship. For example, we have a rituals where you go to a maternal uncle's house and they will tie a ginger. They will give you a ginger, and that ginger you have to keep it till the next, a festival where when you can change it. Now that ginger is not merely food, but then it is much more than that, because it reminds you like your maternal uncle are the most important people, and then the relationship that you share with your maternal uncle and you are important. Because throwing away or losing away of ginger, that which was given to you by the maternal uncle, can have an adverse effect on your health. That is what we believe. And also to cast away the spirit, we use to cast away the evil spirits, housewarming, we use that ginger. All right, to cast away any evil spirit that are there in the house. So look at how ginger has different, been used for different things. So it has much more. It's not merely a term. We call it ginger chin. It's not merely a term chin, but it has so many different functions, so many different social cultural significance it has. So it is very important so that we understand the full idea, so that we know that can have a complete knowledge about that particular, term. And local beverage is very important. All right. But local beverage nowadays, of course, is so different, like people misuse it. But early days, it was mainly for ritual purpose. But today, this local rice beer, which is easily available in the market, it's been people overusing it, or we have been misusing it. But in early days, it was purely for ritualistic purpose and also for some occasional. It was not available in throughout the year, which means how important it was in those days. But now the value has gone down. So all these different local beverages terms also need to be, collected and also to be understood properly and studied. Right? And the next is medicinal plants is one of the important to see how people used different medicinal plants for different things. All right. And then how their significance, cultural significance, which they have, not merely the term that we collect, but then also the other, important informations that are there, which that particular term can give you. This has to be taken into considerations. Now, next is disease and traditional methods of disease. There are different diseases. For example, in Nocte, we call it like diarrhea. Diarrhea, English also they call it diarrhea plus loose motion. All right, these are the two terms so far I know about this particular disease. But in Nocte, we have Hachuan. Hachuan, we call it. Ha means that excreta. Chuan means going. All right. So we have different. It's not English has a two combinations of like loose and motions. All right, combinations. Ours is very specific. Ha means if you dissect the English word loose and motions, then they're not connected to each other as such. Okay, but ours is very much relevant. Ha means excreta, chuan means going and living. So very appropriate. So these are the important, terms that we also find in, and they're the terms we use it. For example, malaria. Malaria, we call it sakti sati kwanchat, means shivering. Based on the symptoms of that particular disease, we have that name. All right. So there are different treatments for that. Traditional treatment for that, different methods. For example, and there are also different shamanism, or the priests, we call local priests we have. There are different priests for different purposes. And they have been called by different names. All right. Even there are women priests. There are male main priests. So there are different, priests we have, and they have different role. And then one of the ritual practices is like, for example, I'm just trying this particular broom leaf reading. It's very common in my community. Broom leaf reading for any kind of diseases or any kind of problem, even for somebody stolen something, or even you have sickness, then you can consult this particular Tanwa. All right, Tanwa, one of the priest, and then he will be able to tell you by reading the broom leaf. Now look at this term used for this particular broom leaf reading, that ritual. It's called a tandak. Tan means to see, actually, or to foretell. Dak is a leaf here. Okay, tandak. It's broom leaf is, it's here. It's not, we don't call it as a jharu kapatta, something. We don't call it. Rather, we use it because our using of that broom leaf is different. Though we also use it for brooming that particular plant, to broom, to wive, but our most important, part of that is that we use it for different, for tail the different, problems. All right. And then that person will be able to tell you that what you should do and what you should not do. Look that direction, in that direction, kind of, that he will suggest you by looking at that particular leaf. Now, there are many, like egg reading, liver reading, and also we have chicken intestine reading, chicken liver reading. There are many things. So these readings have different terms and will have a different, meaning. So so therefore, what I am saying is like, there are terms, linguistic categories which have so many different embedded informations. All right, magic and chants, spiritual satisfaction, blessings. There are different chants for blessings, okay, and for spiritual, satisfaction. People do that, and these are very important. For example, kopopasa. Kopopasa. Whenever somebody chants for a person to shower a blessings, in my community they say like kopopasa dango. Kopopasa dango. It means kopo means till your hair become gray, and till your teeth become maybe kind of gray. So both, like that means you live long. That is the whole meaning of kopopasa. Kopopasa, which means you live till your hair become gray and your teeth become, till your hair and teeth become gray. That kind of, the blessing, the chant, the blessing words for that. So these are so many beautiful words. And then they relate to how they relate to the, graying of hair and you're becoming your teeth gray to the long life. So these are the important thing. Now, game sports, of course, is also a very important part of our culture. And then there are different terms and, knowledge are there in that games. For example, few games, for example, these are the art traditional games. It's very important. Bamboo, like where we climb up on the bamboo and then we fight. And also we climb up the hill. So these are interesting games, different games that can be, we can look into that and how they are socially, cultural significance. This, sorry, the first one has a kind of your leadership quality, how you lead. We used to lead, one person will lead and then other will follow. Wherever he goes, one has to follow. And whosoever falls in between from that, clutching on the bamboo, then he or she has to go back. So kind of competitions is always there. And the leadership quality and the mental, physical health benefits of this traditional games are also very important. So games is just noting down or collecting only the lexical items of those terms. It's not enough, but to really look into beyond that, some of the important informations that are there in that some of these traditional games and sports is also important. Now, marriage, birth, and death, these are very important. Marriage, next slide. Our concept of marriage will be a different. Marriage is, for example, in Nokte, marriage means cup min. Cup min, cup is a take, min is a mutual kind of thing. So we understand there's a mutual consensus bonding of two people coming together. And there's equal, they are equal. So our whole understanding of marriage is maybe different. So therefore we treat man and woman equal. But in other cultures, the term itself may suggest that there is something different. All right. Birth and death. I remember somebody telling me in one day, a small group in somewhere in between India and Burma, all right, in our eastern side, Tirap district side, there's one small tribe, Hakun. It was, the village name is Hakun, but they are, maybe they speak more or less like very, very, not much similar, but then somewhat similar with our Nokte language. That's what I was told. I have not gone or I have not personally gone and visited that place and studied, but then what I've been told that particular community that are there in that place, their understanding of birth is very different. That's what they said. They said that when a child dies, a child is taken in the veranda in the platform, and the mother takes her on her left, and then every sorry, everybody cries. And when somebody dies, everybody laugh. So their understanding of birth and death is different, because why they cry when a baby is born, because they say that you have come into the place where so much of sufferings. So birth is not a good thing. You're coming to the place where there are a lot of sufferings, and you will suffer. So that is death, of course, going away from, living the all this so-called world, sufferings and difficulties, problems and all. So therefore people are happy about it. So this birth, death, relations, or there, it's also interesting to study. And giving birth to a twin, deformed, differently able people is also important. There are different terms for that. All right. This also has to be looked into. Rituals associated with marriage, birth, death, traditional ways of giving birth, puberty rituals, observing taboos and its effects. Right. These are the important. This hygiene, I put it because purposely, but I'm not going to just not discuss here. This pavement and then toilet and all that was related to hygiene issues. Anyway, now forest, and next is forest and environment. Now we have different terms for different plants and the trees and forests and products, and this has to be taken into considerations. And then how they are, these people are related to those different plants and, with the nature, or their relationship with the nature, how they're connected, how they understand their surrounding, how they conceptualize, how they perceive their environment. For example, Mithun is one of the typical, one of the important animal for the Tani community. So this Mithun has a very significant socially, culturally, very significant. Though people eat, but still it is one of the most important. It's not only for eating, but there are many other things that there which, because of which this Mithun is considered as one of the important animal for these people. And in many community, for example, in my community, chicken is the most important animal, for example, the smallest but most important. Suppose in a party, in a social marriage or any social functions, if you have cut or killed a chicken, pig, buffalo, or mutton, then chicken you have to give first. Then pig, the pork, then buffalo meat or any other. So just imagine the importance of importance of, though chicken is the smallest, but it's still important. And also there are many belief systems associated with the nature, spirits, animals, reptile, birds. That's how relationship with the nature. So totemism is one of the important concept here, where people relate themselves with the animals, plants, and spirits. There are so many different spirits with different names, different functions for that they have in the tribal community. So this also, and forest conservation impact on environment. There are a community who eating a wild meat is a taboo for many community. They kill it, but then they don't eat it, or even killing is prohibited in many. So in that way, the conservations of forests, wild animals, it's also happened in many of the community. Now, agriculture practice tools and also important. We have to understand the different methods we used. Zoom cultivation, shifting cultivations, and maybe the wet cultivation, different agriculture practices, and then also different methods, tools, and for example, these are the different tools which have different names. And these names are based on how it is made. Okay, it not simply just they name it, but it's to understand there's some history behind the making of those tools. All right. Now I'll just shift. Handicraft and handloom also important, and there are different terms nowadays. So many different new innovative thing has come up in many of the fashion, traditional fashion, so which happen in say in universities or any other platform. What happened is sometimes so funny to look at, like whenever people are asked, the contestant are asked, like, what you wear, tell us. Then many of them do not know actually what they're wearing, what's the name of that particular dress or the ornaments that they wear. So it's such, these are situations is happening in everywhere. So it is important to preserve all those different terms, and also the significance, the value associated with that, those different dress, and how is it been made, the methods of making, what kind of materials, what are the different weaving, embroidery, and the pattern. Those things are very important. Different costumes, dresses, ornaments, and different materials. And another thing is painting, sculpture, wood carving, arts and performance, folk dance. These are also very important because they give you a lot of information. Now, not much, that's just more or less coming to the end part. Next is the traditional polity customs. We have to look at into that also. Whenever we collect, we have to collect all those different terminologies, like traditional justice system, how they functions, what are different legal terms or customary, terms they used to deliver the justice. And like institutions, like political institutions, which we have, there are chieftainship, also there are kebang, the independent, the different institutions that they are functioning in the community. All those has to be taken considered. Then how they are, what is the term for that particular chief, and how, and then to analyze that particular term to understand more about this chieftain, chief. All right, and then women rights, gender equality, and all those adoption system in many culture there is adoption system is also there, where child parents adoptions. In my community we have adoption system, where somebody married from other village or maybe from other tribes, then she has to adopt parents from that from that particular village, and there are different terms used for different things. And all these are because of there's a girl needs a social security, social political security is given through that adoption system. So this has to be also taken care. And the housing patterns, different terms of housing materials, what are the materials we use, what are different, how we construct, okay, space, directions, and the other ritual, that are involved while doing it. All right, so these are important thing we have to understand. And then oral folk literature is one of the most important thing part of this, our language and culture, components. Folk tales, it has lot many things to tales. Folk songs, chants, morning songs, blessing songs, love songs, war songs. This are also part of part of the language. In my community, we have their love songs. It's so beautiful when you listen. And translations, of course, once you translate, then it actually violates the the beauty of the song. But then still, you can feel it. At least you can understand what it means. So blessing song, love song, war songs. So all these things we can still collect it, and that will give us more about what the society is, or how the society was in now. I mean, like, we'll know better about the social society and how they functions. Myth of origins and all those, celestial's body, mankind, the world, origin of mankind. I mean, a migration history. These are the important part of our proverbs, riddles, lullabies, all also important. And because the language we use for proverbs will be quite different. And so different forms of proverbs and then their functions and the wisdom and the cultural meanings that are there in that proverbs and riddles, and how they've been transmitted. This are a very important aspect of our our quest for understanding the whole process of social and cultural interactions. Now, last, this is what I just gave. Now, now look at this. Suppose if I put the last point is like language laws of language laws. That's which I really wanted to touch. Now, this is a public notice, lost and found. Material is lost. If found, please contact. Is it possible to do that with regard to language? If it's with something else, then of course it can be returned. But in language lost, it can't be returned when it's lost. So we can't do that. Okay, we can't notify that. Because when language dies, it dies. It doesn't ring bell. All right, that everybody knows. But it dies as it is. Quietly it dies. Now, this is just a very general, next slides. Hello. This is a very general, many of us, we know, like what happens when we lose language. That is what I think many of us will be very aware of this thing. Now, the reasons for death of language could be any other, maybe like natural calamities, or sometime with language shift, it happens. And maybe or many other ways are there where language dies or we lose our language. Now, but what happens? What is the impact on the social cultural ethos of the society when a language dies? Is just, you can see here, loss of oral traditions and expressions, loss of self-identity and self-esteem, loss of moral and social values, loss of wisdom and knowledge, disintegration of family and society, loss of solidarity and political power, negative impact on ecological diversity, loss of knowledge about flora and fauna. So these are the negative impact on the social cultural ethos of society if the language is lost. So we understand how it is important. So we can't just neglect merely understanding the basic knowledge about language, but also beyond that, we have to look. Then only the whole, it would give us more complete picture of what we want to know. Now, this is the thing. And the last, now this is what I just wanted to show you. Now, in the last speakers, there's a book called The Last Speakers, written by Harrison in 2005, where Johnny Hill Jr., a last speaker of Chemehuevi language of Arizona, asserts. Now, this is what the whole summarize. We can summarize into this. The last. Yeah. This is what. No. Second last. Just this is what you see. Now, whatever I have discussed in the consequence of loss of languages, this is the thing. Now, in the last speakers, Harrison, Johnny Hill Jr., last speakers of Chemehuevi language of speakers, asserts what he says, that it is not just the language that's dying, it's the Chemehuevi people themselves. It's not just the language dying, but it's the entire whole mankind. It is the Chemehuevi people themselves. They die. So just imagine. Now, this is a beautiful, point given by Ignacio. So if you can, I can just read it. It is the end of my talk. So you can put the people in chains, strip them, pluck up their mouths. They are still free. Take away their jobs, their passports, the tables they eat on, the beds they sleep in. They are still rich. A people becomes poor and enslaved when they are robbed of the tongue, left them by their ancestors, then they are lost forever. This is the very beautiful point written by this Ignacio. So I just wanted to share it. And with this, I hope that I make some sense. And there's the reference. And thank you so much. I hope I have not taken much. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wanglit, for your wonderful presentation on the vast domains that you have covered to understand how language is a cultural repository of ideas and tradition. So I'm sure there will be many questions and suggestions from our members present in today's session. So I'd like to request all of you to unmute yourselves and ask questions, and you can
Sorry.
also put questions in the chat box. So the Zoom room is actually open for discussion now, so you can unmute yourselves and ask questions.
I think some suggestions, comments would also be very much, welcome. That would really benefit all of us.
Yeah, if there are any suggestions. I just remembered one thing I wanted to know, that community that you mentioned where during birth they cry and they weep, and
Yeah, yeah.
get they cheer and celebrate. Can you tell me the name of that community in Arunachal Pradesh?
That was, I think that was a long time back, even when I joined, when I didn't join this linguistic world. Actually, it was, I think, in 1997, when I was in school, somebody actually told me we were having a Keram, we were playing Keram, then he talked about that particular community called Hakun. Hakun is actually, whether it's a name of a community or it's a village name, I'm also, that's not sure. All right. This person visited because he is from Laju. Laju is very close to Burma. All right. So he visited that village, and then he told me just, so that I have to really find out more about that. So Hakun is a village, that's for sure, I know. And what he said was that these people speak very similar to your language. That's what he said. Olo or Laju is also one of the subgroup of Nocte, but the language which I speak is similar to those community or the people of that particular village, where the whole idea of death and birth concept they have.
Yes, I think Hakun is, I've seen this name in the Naga group of languages also. Somewhere in the ethnologue, I have also seen that. So thank you. I just wanted to know that name. Yeah, are there any suggestions? Yeah, I think Pautang, Dr. Pautang has unmuted, so you can ask.
Yeah, please.
Okay, very good evening to
Good evening.
yeah, Wanglit. Yeah, thank you so much for that extensive deliberation on the importance of language, on culture and society and so on. So the talk, as it is very extensive.
Yeah.
Perhaps this is something that I have been I've been intrigued about. So there are multiple areas in tribal society where this notion of traditional knowledge in relation to fauna, flora practices, and also you have given them a number of examples. So it will be very interesting if you can give the names, local names of those concepts, or fauna or flora, local names. And then the equivalence, if you have scientific name, if you can provide scientific names, and also give the phonetic glossing for those terms. This will give us a lot of insight into the history of the language. So if you talk about
Absolutely.
instrument, so like we have who, we have spade, but we have different type of who for what you call sowing seed, and who for what you call for tilling the land. There are several types.
Yeah.
So if each of these names can be what you call provided in your work later on, not now, and then give the phonetic translation and also the equivalent. If you have equivalent, you give them. Otherwise, one can always resort to pictogram. You can always give your picture over there. So this will give us a lot of insight about language borrowing, language contact, and so on and so forth. And regarding this fauna flora, so if you examine carefully, so the manner in which these names of animals and names of what you call birds are given. So there is a very interesting pattern. For example, woodpecker. Even in English, we have woodpecker. So woodpecker is given to a particular bird on the basis of its what you call a physiological habit, or you may put it because of its physical characteristic that this bird has to pick upon a wood, dead wood. So names of birds also follow some sort of pattern. And then even for insects, and then if you go to a field, there you find what you call lots of insects. Some insects are harmful for the plant, whereas other insects help in pollination, and so on and so forth. So this naming of these things, fauna and flora, is one thing that you can thoroughly contribute upon. This will enrich our understanding of not only your culture, and also the culture of Northeast India as a whole, and the future researcher can emulate upon what you have contributed. So your work is extensive, but I was expecting more than that, in the sense that you will give some local names because you have presented, you
Did
read
it.
them out, but
Okay.
reading and visuals are two different things. So I was expecting for some visual.
Okay. Can I counter,
Anyway,
sir?
those are
Actually,
few comments.
actually, this is not what I really. This is not what I'm doing actually. Okay. I was just only trying to understand, trying to put before all of us, like, these are the areas, the scope that we can look into. I have not worked actually. So few examples which I have mentioned or quoted are just what I understand. So it's more general kind of presentations which I did it actually, sir. So maybe like we can do more later part. Otherwise, I would have given, if this whatever I have so far presented was related to the current work or I'm doing, then I would have given more examples. But since I have not even started actually, this is just a very general kind of presentations. So next, if I start, then definitely sure I will give the different terms and terminologies, whatever available in my language or any other languages for that matter. Thank you, sir. Hello. Hello.
Yeah, I am
Yeah,
listening.
yeah.
I'm listening.
Yeah, okay. That's so. So that is what. All right, sir.
Okay, I got it.
Thank you, Dr. Pautang Haokip, for your suggestion. And are there any more questions from the participants? What about Dhiren Singh, sir? Do you want to say something? Or Mosil, Uncle Mosil?
Uncle Mosul. Yeah. Brother Mosul, it should be.
Actually, I have nothing to say, but yes, I have nothing to ask because I don't know what more should I ask for, because the talk seems to be very complete to me, and it is, I think it is going to, help me a lot in, prioritizing my, uh, see, my work. How how to start, where to start, from which point. These things are all shown in the talk, in the slides. So, um, thank you, Mr. Wanglit.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your appreciations and your comments. Thank you so much. We can work on more later part.
Thank you, Uncle Musil. Any suggestions participants want to give to our speaker?
Yeah, there's nothing lies. Kind of thing, but this is one area which linguists have neglected for long.
Yeah,
Because, linguists
exactly.
in Northeast, as we all know, we go directly into the structure of the language.
Absolutely.
So this sort of work, the relationship between language and culture, you can look at two spectrum, at two perspective. One we can look at from theoretical perspective, but to me, if you can do some, if we can do some work, terms are despairing because these terms concept known to the younger generation, and elderly despairing men make a what you call, if not encyclopedia on the cultural terms and concept in the language. So this will really help. As I said, when a linguist make it, it is not the only. We are not going to do it only orthography. We will give the orthography name, then we have this phonetic transcription. Required because for most of these terms we don't have equivalents, and the only hindrance I face is we don't have scientific names of fauna and flora in Northeast. So these are things that one can always apply for projects. This is very good for a project. You can apply for project for document. So this will be very good project. So you can right away think of preparing one project and submit it. You get the money there. You can work upon it. Okay.
What you said, like as a linguist, we have been neglecting this area for so long. So therefore, I think my whole idea of presenting this was also to, ignite ourselves to where we can, relook into these areas where we haven't. That was only my idea, and you rightly pointed out, Bojang sir. Thank you.
Lastly, the best place to begin language documentation is with agriculture. And also agriculture, there are two types of agriculture. One is zoom cultivation, and one is the wet or plain cultivation. So if you go into this, what you call zoom cultivation, there you find different types of grass. So English has only one name for grass, but we have more than dozens of names for grass. Then even for the root, different type of roots. Some roots this what do you call? We have what do you call this red? Not a red. What do you call that? One type of red, which is in the root of some grass. So there are multiple things that we can document. So just going to the field, collecting and then different types of ants, and then so many things we can do about it. So this is a very good area. I have just started, but I could not continue. So I was also interested with you. I am done, Monali. I am done.
Okay. Yes, I also agree with what Dr. Haukip has said. Like this requires major attention because it has been ignored and neglected by linguists who work on Northeast Indian languages. I think you can Wanglit, you can initiate a project for documentation and for making a report of all these, because this terminologies, these names also will die, because our culture is so much influenced with Indianization and Westernization. So it definitely needs a documentation before younger generation minimize the use and use of cultural practices in their daily life. So I think we have come to the end of our.
Okay, Monali, once again, just one line to add. So I was going through one of the reviews of what you call this word book. See, word book is very helpful. So word book is very helpful. But in one of the reviews that I read, the reviewer says that when we give names of plant, we say it is a type of plant, it is a type of grass, it is a type of. So those informations are not enough. So what do you mean by it is a type of grass? Huh? At least so that utility. So what are the utility? And you have to give domain. So we have one grass, then you just give the, say, the shape. So it is how long kind of centimeter. Then the utility. So what are the utility for this kind of, so utility? We can have some medicinal value. We can, or I think it has other domain of utility. So if you can segregate like that, instead of mentioning that it's a type of grass, I also did the same, because and then I found that my word book is wordless. even for myself, it's wordless. So now with much informed, what it called this thing, we can discuss about this thing. Give a different column. Mention about the, what you call, the quality of that plant or animal, then the utility, and so on and so forth. Also mention about this what you call the, if it has some kind of bodily features, or if that animal or plant is what you call associated with some kind of action, like woodpecker. So woodpecker is definitely a bird which picks on dead wood, something like that. Okay, then the word book can become meaningful. And as I said, pictograph or pictography can always help in the description of this thing. Yeah, good.
Okay. Thank you once again um, to all the participants. And in spite of our speaker, Dr. Wanglit, being unwell, he has still, come forward and presented his talk, which we totally appreciate from Tiblane. So I'd like to request our Joint Secretary, Dr. Bijan Kumar Singh, to kindly give his vote of thanks and conclude the session.
Thank you, Monali. And I would like to extend our heartfelt thanks to Dr. Wanglit Mongchan for delivering such an extensive presentation on the relation between language and the culture, and how the culture has a big role to play in our language. Thank you for that. And I would like to thank all the members of Tivlane, as well as others also who have joined today's session, and for sparing your valuable time with us, and especially Sir Dr. Pauthang Hawke for being with us in the discussion and giving so many insights and inputs to come up with even for a projects also, and we are really thankful for that. So with this note, I think we almost done with today's session. So thank you everyone, and have a pleasant evening. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you all of you. Same to you, Bijan. Good night.
Thank you, Wanglit. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night, everyone. Yeah.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.